Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded March 3rd, 2021. Good evening, Franklin. How are you doing?
I'm attending Ignite. This is a break in the session. So how has your Ignite sessions been going?
Non-existent. I haven't had opportunity. I've been busy.
I'm just kidding. I know.
Okay. Ignite is customer facing, right? But it's what you get to meet in the pre-pandemic, you got to meet the cool folks, right? They gave you the inside. I would always win swag when I used to go, though. I was always the person that walked out of the place with like an armful of Xboxes and Yeti coolers and stuff. You know the secret to winning? Someone called me. You know, I used to go in and they said, put your card in the fishbowl.
Yep.
Well, I would take everybody else's cards out and put in my pocket and put a handful of mine in there. I would take everybody's cards out and just take them with me and just put a handful of mine.
You know, what drove me crazy is I would go to all these events and, I'd be like, there would be like 3 people at the local Microsoft office and they're giving away an Xbox. I'm, 1 in 3 chance. And of course I would lose. And the guy that wins it would say like, yeah, I already have 8 Xboxes. I'm like, what? Come on. So finally, I actually won one. I was an event with like 2,000 people. I get a call while I'm in a meeting or an email. I'm like, all right, is this is somebody trying to phish me? So then I forgot that I was actually on the call. But then when I realized it was real, I'm like, this is bad because when you get good luck, then you're always going to get the bad luck. After that. So I'm like, I don't want to win. Of course, next day my air conditioning unit goes out. So, $8,000 Xbox in my opinion.
Okay. Well, I did sign up for the SC200.
The exam.
The exam. I'm going to take it the 10th, I think I told you. 10th.
Okay.
I'm going to knock it out, so I'll go do that. I finished your KQL course to all our listeners and everything, Franklin claim to fame is on the new Microsoft learning path for Defender for Endpoint, Sentinel, and a lot of the components of the SC. He wrote a lot of the study content, so it's actually pretty good, especially the modules on KQL. I did finish it.
I think the last module within inside that learning path, a lot of people don't understand unless they're going out writing parsers and all that stuff. Parsing out syslog information, then they're going to have a better understanding of that. So, did you learn anything when you were in there?
Hey, I learned enough that I can understand Rod Trent's blogs now.
That's the entire goal of the content. So for people to, if you can read that material and understand Rod Trent, then I was success at putting together the course material.
If Rod's listening, he's gonna say something in a minute, right?
Oh yeah.
But we got a packed action-packed March. We wanted to get some of the top players at Microsoft around the Azure Sentinel product, and which is a huge fan of in the show, which I cover primarily my daily role. But this young man I've had the opportunity to work with and absolutely learn a ton from him when I got thrown into the fire and working with some clients that were just white hot, that had to be done, had to be fixed, and so I can't do him justice in the intro, so I'm going to let him do it and introduce himself and what he does. So, and check out the cool spelling of his name, Cristhofer. It's phonetically correct, Cristhofer.
Yes,
Cristhofer, introduce yourself, what you do, what's your passion, and how much did we have to pay you to come on this podcast? There you go.
Thank you, Ed. Thank Frank for the invitation. My name is Cristhofer Muñoz. I'm a program manager, part of the Cloud and Artificial Intelligence Engineering Division. I focus on making sure that customers embrace cybersecurity and that they lessen the risk when it comes to cybersecurity as well. So I focus on Azure Sentinel. My responsibility is to help customers onboard to Azure Sentinel by following our, or what we call our recommended practices. So, helping them become more cyber resilient and also modernizing their security operations is what I do. My passion is having an impact on people, organizations of all sizes, but most importantly, empowering and uplifting others. That's definitely my passion and my purpose in this life.
That sounds like an atypical description of a superhero. You know, I joined the Justice League because I wanted to make a difference, right?
Yes, sir.
Batman wasn't doing it, so I came around, right? And Superman's a Boy Scout. So, we talk about what you do, but give me a little bit of history. How did you get to this point, right? Have you always been in technology? And people, quite a few people come into technology, but the filters out most who can make the cut in cybersecurity. How did you find that this was your I don't want to go these. How did you find this was your calling? I'm going to go that route.
Well, I grew up in the Dominican Republic, and to be honest, I grew up in a less privileged environment. And the only tech company that you would ever see was Microsoft. That was the only company that you would see when it comes to hardware. And I remember that I was 8 years old, and I told my mom, "Listen, one day I'm going to work for Microsoft."
Okay.
Because we saw that Microsoft was doing, a lot of charity work, in the Dominican Republic, and I really, that really hit home. I really admired that, and for that reason, I wanted to work at Microsoft. Now, the whole tech side of the house, when I was growing up, 10, 11, 12, I was like the tech guy for the family, right? So I would fix everyone's computers. I would take viruses off. And that's where I got into cybersecurity. And I saw that, viruses, spyware, and things of that nature also impact personal people, not just enterprises, but a personal person's, PC or phone. Growing up, I played baseball. I went to college to play baseball. I got a contract for the LA Dodgers to play pro baseball as well. That was my main passion. But aside from that, it was definitely technology. When I got into Microsoft, I was working as a Windows 10 consultant.
Really?
So I know a lot about Windows 10, right? Mm-hmm. And SCCM, MDT, and deploying Windows 10 at scale. That wasn't really my passion. I knew how to do it. I knew the impact that it had, but it wasn't really my calling. From there, I met a fellow named Chris Jackson. May he rest.
I know Chris.
Yep.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And he got me into Windows 10 security, right? And he was my mentor. He told me, listen, go into cybersecurity. There's a lot of different use cases. Enterprises are being affected by cybersecurity. This is the area that I think will be great for you. I gave it a try. I remember the first attack that I learned about was pass the hash, right? So I learned about, Windows 10 Device Guard and App Locker and Windows Hello and all these different security features, and I actually implemented them across so many different enterprises. I fell in love with that. Then I got into enterprise mobility, and that's where I really fell in love with cybersecurity, knowing the risk that enterprises have when people work remotely, when people bring their own personal devices into the corporate world. There's so many different gaps in areas, and for that, I knew that I was never going to be bored in an area that had such a calling and that needed immediate impact, right? So my job, my role, I don't even call it a job. To me, cybersecurity is a hobby. Not one day that I wake up and I, come to work and I work at Microsoft would I ever call it a job. I think the word job is pretty heavy, right? And I feel like what we do, it's a blessing, man. It's definitely a blessing. Yeah.
You can tell Franklin, he hasn't been bent over by the corporate cynicism that you and I have, right? I Franklin and I are much older than you, and we came up through the ranks totally different when security wasn't something that you could get a job for. It was something that you did, right? Yeah. If you were the network guy, you were the security guy. If you were this guy, you that. And then it finally evolved toward the backside of the 90s and 2000s that this needed to be its own thing and not something. Because Franklin, you've been closer to security than I have. I came up through the networking and server side stuff and jumped into security about 10, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 10, 12, where I just primarily focused on that, right? Frank, when's the earliest time that you heard someone use the term CISO, Chief Information Security Officer?
I can't remember last month. Come on. I do have a question, though, about Windows 10, because, I keep hearing about all these attacks that take place. And they're like, it was Windows 10 and it has Microsoft Defender on it. And then you look at what's really taking place. And I'm amazed at how many people are not taking advantage of the security within inside Windows 10.
Yes.
I mean, do you see that, and are you frustrated about that? I mean, what's your take on it?
It definitely frustrates me, especially customers that they have devices that they support Windows Hello. Why not use biometrics, right? Why not go passwordless? Passwordless is the way to go. And to be transparent, 67% of attacks are due to what? Credential theft, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we could find a way to minimize the risk by going passwordless, I highly recommend every enterprise out there to go down that endeavor, right? Yep.
So which feature, the Windows 10 security feature, do you see, if you had to turn on just one, which one would it be?
Oof. I would definitely say device guard.
And can you explain to everyone what device guard is?
Yeah, so device guard is a Windows 10 feature that is dedicated, or the scope behind it was to mitigate pass the hash attacks. Okay. Right? So pass the hash is whenever a attacker or a bad actor, they're able to hack or compromise someone's hash, and they're able to move laterally across the environment.
Is this virtualizing LSAS? Is that what it's doing?
Yep. So correct. Okay. Yeah. So it is virtualizing the LSAS. So the bad actor cannot have access to the LSAS. The LSAS is where that secret is stored. And for that reason, by locking that down, they won't be able to move laterally by using the hash of that individual.
And how do they actually configure that? How does that get configured in Windows 10?
So it's actually GPO. You could it's a GPO setting. You could just deploy via SCCM and everyone's secured, right? But it does. You do need to have the right machine for it, right? It does. You need to support it, right? It doesn't come enabled on every single machine.
Okay. And what's the second? Would you say?
The second, Windows Hello. Yeah, without a doubt.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, passwordless, right? Going passwordless is definitely the way to go. I mean, just by doing that, you will minimize so much risk, right? So Windows Hello would definitely be the second viable solution for that.
All right. So I know you're a Sentinel person, but out of the 4 Microsoft 365 Defender products, Defender for Endpoint, MCAS, Defender for Identity, or Office 365, you could only implement one. Which one would be the one that you implement, and which one would be the one that would be the last one? Number 1 and number 4.
Don't let me down, Chris. Question. Don't let me down, Chris.
That is.
I got a grip bet on this. Don't let me down.
Wow, that's a tough question.
Give him the choices one more time, Frank. So let me give it, because he might subliminally influence your choices, right? Out of 4 things you can implement.
Yeah.
Defender for 365.
Out of Defender 365. So it's Defender for Endpoint, Office 365, Defender for Identity, and MCAS. Which is number 1? Which one is number 4?
Wow, that's tough. So number 1 being the first one that I will deploy.
Yeah.
Wow. Number 4. Let's start. Yeah, number 4 will probably be. Oh my God, this is tough.
Come on, man. Come on. Hey, you thought this was going to be one of the easy podcasts. We're going to get like that.
Oh, come on.
I mean, I've worked and I've deployed each one, so I know how good they are, right? So, I would say number 1 would definitely have to be Defender for Endpoint.
There you go. All right, number 4. I'm waiting for it.
Number 4.
Wow. And they are in a hybrid scenario. So
hybrid scenario. Okay, hybrid scenario. Yep. Wow. Oh my goodness, this is tough. And sorry for any PMs that are, that I know that are listening to this. I'm not putting your product down. Number 4, I would say, geez, this is tough. I'll put MCAS down.
All right.
Damn it.
I like this guest.
You paid him. You paid him, Franklin. You got to him. And so Franklin would tell you, before I started covering I started covering Sentinel. MCAT is my favorite product, right? Because I worked on it in some stuff with Steve Feld and some other things.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's all right. Sentinel's my favorite. MCAT still my strong number 2. Defender for Endpoints number 12. How about that?
All right.
Yeah.
Here's my other favorite question.
Yeah.
What's currently in the current version of Sentinel? What's the most useless feature?
Oof. Wow. All the PMs are going to come after me, man. I'm telling you.
I'll change the question because I don't put them on the spot. In your comings and goings, when you have gone to a customer, what feature do you find least deployed that they should take advantage of? Yes. How about that? That's more. There you go. and up until today, right? Because they made some announcements today night. Up until today, you go into the customer and you see a feature that's not deployed that you believe it should be.
Yeah.
The least deployed.
Yeah. So I would say the out-of-the-box hunting queries. Okay. And the reason why is because a lot of enterprises are still focused on the reactive efforts, analytics, things of that nature. It's very hard to find enterprises that are doing proactive threat hunting, and that's a journey in itself. So definitely out of the box hunting queries. Whenever I engage with any customer, that's definitely the one that, you know what, I haven't really tried this out yet. And on top of that, I will say live stream. Not a lot of customers use live stream.
That's true.
Right. So those are probably.
Yeah, I had a customer today. I did a demo and I spent some time on that. But it really goes by the maturity and the experience of the customer, because this customer was mature enough to, they understand all the concepts. They just want to know how to Sentinel do it, right? They were huge elk, stack. They were confident in Logstash, Kafka, all these tools, right? So they say, hey, we want to put let me tell you how I knew this customer was mature.
Yeah.
Not too many times I had a customer call Sentinel a secure operation platform rather than a SIEM, because they understand the power. Like, yeah, we want Sentinel as part of our secure operational platform because we are taking complete advantage of the Microsoft ecosystem. So they built Microsoft as the ecosystem and they plugged in other Spot products as necessary, because there was some very, Spot requirements that they had that we just couldn't fill that spot. And plus they had a lot of mergers and acquisitions. So some other products are better from M&As than our product. Our products are largely subscription-based, merging of tenants, subscriptions and stuff. They wanted this autonomy to be able to say, we can bring you on, protect you with this particular product, and not necessarily have to get you a subscription as of yet until we do the due diligence, collapse your mail domain and all this other stuff that come in. So, but yeah, that's good, man. I told Frank I'm jealous of guys like you are coming to this technology arena, and we're on our way out. You're coming into a golden age of technology around this, right? And I thought I was going to be aged out, but I find myself still viable because people like that experience. Like, what have you done with this? Because impact to the business is still a huge thing, because IT does not like security guys. We're always telling them what they cannot do.
Yep.
Right. Which is the reason I don't like the title CISO. Now, for CISOs that are listening, this is nothing against you. I think you should drop the I and be a chief security officer, and you should be parallel to the CIO. You should not work for the CIO, right? You should, CIO, the information, the line of the business, chief security officer, securing your line of business, and then a technology officer, maybe who's the innovator to say, we should consider this, and then see if the adoptions is there. But I find myself, when I have to interact with CISOs, they tend to have to wait for budget from the CIO, or God forbid, I see a CISO that's reporting to the CFO, right? Because you don't have one, right? I think it should be an equal spot on that C-suite. And that's just my opinion. Not that I think that the title and the job is not valuable. I don't think it gets enough teeth to push back and say, no, we're not doing that. Right? Because when ish goes down, my neck is on the line. So we actually, Frank, you have any more questions before we get to the top?
Right, so I'll answer my own question. It's watch list. So
watch list. Yeah, he doesn't like watch list.
No, so So you talked about the things that they're probably not utilizing. So where do you see the customers getting the top two things that the customer wins with immediately that you're seeing?
Data connectors. I mean, that's the first entry point to any SIM, right? But as part of Azure Sentinel, our goal is to develop more data collection vehicles that can make the life a lot easier on the that SOC team. So we're actually providing you, the customer, so many different opportunities for them to collect all that security data into Azure Sentinel in no time, basically, right? So we have Ceph, we have syslog, we have a whole bunch of out-of-the-box data connectors, and we also have Logstash now supported, right? So we have different vehicles that the customer can instantly use and get all of their security data. And on top of that, we have built-in content. And I really feel like that's where the value of Azure Sentinel really comes in, is because we have workbooks that can help you visualize and allow you to actually decipher the security data and visualize it. And we also have analytics that map back to the MITRE framework. That's a whole game changer. All right. So I feel like, customers definitely benefit from the data connectors and also the automation out of Azure Sentinel as well. So those are probably the top two that I would say.
All right. So
let me go back to something real quick.
Okay.
So a friend of the show is Nathan Swift. I don't know if you know Nathan.
Of course, Nate. Yeah.
He's been on the show.
I know Nate.
He's been on the show. Nathan and I collaborated, mostly him doing most of it. I just come up with the ideas. He comes with the actual delivery. A script that can download every query that's ever been running in a subscription.
Wow.
So I got a surprise for Nathan that I fixed it now that I've figured out how to take a series of queries from one tenant and automatically download them locally and then upload them into another subscription, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I would like to do is try to figure out, I shouldn't have to write that as an industry expert or a person. I think this is a feature, maybe CXC can go with this.
Yeah.
That it's just a PowerShell.
Yeah.
CXC can do it. That I should be able to take something out of my demo and not to cut and paste, but be able to download a complete list of queries, playbooks, and things in automation, and be able to bring that into another environment. And obviously going to be errors because, tenant ID, subscription ID, and everything else. But give me a template that says, hey, man, I don't want to write all these workbooks from scratch. Not workbooks, I'm sorry, playbooks from scratch, logic apps. I don't see that yet. I would love to be able to grab. It's sort of there with logic apps, but I like to see a little bit more point and click and easier to say, here is a logic app that will create a ServiceNow ticket for you. Mm-hmm. Already there. And here are the 4 fields you just need to do without having to go into the actual logic app designer and do it.
But can't you already get that through the community site and then just click the button that says
deploy the Azure feature inside Git is buggy sometimes, right? I just wanted to make it a little bit more low-hanging fruit for the customer, and I may do it, right? Because it makes my life easier than when I'm inside the ACS demo environment or one of our own. I can just grab that logic app and take it over here and change a couple of things about it and get the stuff from the customer and say, hey, here you go. Those are some of the asks that I would do. And it's probably on
I've had a very good success from the community site and deploying in there. So, and I don't know how much customers are utilizing the community site and people are contributing to it, but I think it's really key to, cybersecurity is a team sport. So I think that community site's very important in making it efficient for people to utilize. So there was other deployment projects out there for automation. I don't know where they're at and where all the APIs are for that. I don't know. Do you know where that's at?
Yeah, so right now we did just announce how we're going to add more automation improvements that even after you call out a playbook, you can add additional steps, right? So for example, let's say, I want to create a ServiceNow incident, but on top of that, I also want to create a Jira incident, right? So you can add multiple steps to one single automation rule. So the automation rule is how we're going to enable customers to really respond faster and analysts to act quickly when it comes to their response to different threats. Yep.
So let me ask you, and I hate to get into licensing, How much do logic apps cost a customer? How is that priced in?
Yeah, so it's priced in per run, and it's actually less than a penny, right? It's probably the most inexpensive feature as part of Azure Sentinel, in my opinion, right? So it's done per run. So every time the customer runs that logic app, it will go ahead and incur a cost.
It's like 0.00023 cents.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah, that thing changes. Hey, we're at the half hour. I want to talk about what we brought you on for, and you wanted to talk about EUBA capability within it, which has happened to be one of my favorite. Entity analytics inside of it. I closed the deal today on it, right? I went through the whole KQL,
Awesome. Yeah.
writing, doing all this and that, and I could feel the customer's shoulders going up, like, oh my God, we got to learn another scripting language. And then when I showed them this, they were like, we're sold, right? And they were like, get this turned on today. So, Cristhofer, talk about that. Why is that your favorite? And then if you need to share your screen and show us some cool tips and tricks, right? Like my mentor told me, I'm watching you because good artists create, but great artists steal. So I'm going to watch and steal me some tricks, right? I steal from Frank all the time, right? And do this stuff. So go ahead, tell us about why this entity behavior, entity analytics is your favorite feature within it.
Yeah, so UEBA is really what helps a customer focus on what really matters, right? I love UEBA. I also love the feature manager, who's a Thai. Me and him are pretty cool. And UEBA really allows the customer to really understand what are the anomalies and what are the deviations when it comes to an entity. Oftentimes, a SOC analyst will just get a traditional log with a timestamp, maybe some sort of information when it comes to the entity, but that's pretty much about it, right? Now, the biggest challenge for any SOC analyst is trying to stitch together those different pieces to make that informed decision. And that is what it could take hours up to days for a SOC analyst to do. So part of UEBA, we're trying to mitigate that. We're trying to reduce the time that it takes for that SOC analyst to really respond or make that informed decision, right? So UEBA is pretty cool. It's out of the box. There's no cost besides the data retention, which right there, that's a no-brainer, right? And at the moment, we use the Azure AD as the source of trust to be able to start creating that behavioral profile of those different entities, right? Another caveat is that it only takes 7 days for us to really understand the behavior of that entity, whereas other vendors, it takes up to 30 or not more days.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Customers love the short trendy timeline, right? So within that, I had a customer ask me today, hey, can I take advantage of the other UBA capabilities and other products that we have? And I said, well, it's according what you're feeding in from the data connectors and the telemetry source, as well as the only analytic that's out of the box enabling all subscription is the multi-attack analytic, right? And that takes advantage of UBA, right? All the other analytic rules, you have to go in and, make the template and put it in use. But hey, let's talk about this UBA stuff, because you're right. I can sell it on that. I can open with it and close with it. And I think I lower the anxiety, and it's not dumbing it down because I kept telling everybody, this what you see right here. If you really need to get granular, Custo query, we can get inside of it, right?
Yep.
So go ahead, let's talk about this UBA thing for our listeners.
Yes.
Pay attention, there'll be a test afterwards to all our listeners.
Yes, definitely. So before we even dive into what UEBA really is, I think it's best for us to, set the level and talk about what are the challenges when it comes to UEBA. All right. So UEBA, number one, attackers are getting more and more sophisticated. That's a no-brainer. But the thing is that the reason why they're getting so much, sophisticated is because the rules that enterprises are creating, they actually lack context. And that lack of context is leading to SOC analysts having to devote more time to different incidents. This also gets the SOC analysts to miss or never investigate certain incidents, which actually, fun fact, 44% of alerts are never investigating, meaning that a lot of them actually fall through the cracks and those can essentially be true positives. Also, rules require too much maintenance. There's fine tuning to different rules, depending on the true positive versus false positive rate. And those are things that enterprises and a SOC has to really take into account in order to enforce quality across their analytics. And
so I like your slide right here.
Yeah.
So my wife saw me putting the slide together. And she said, if I saw you doing that, I'll bust your wig. I was like, hey, he's not looking at her. It's red. It happens to be his favorite color.
Yes, sir. That's it.
And so that's a user behavior, right? Like, wow, why don't you wear red, right? She's wearing blue. And I still get my wig split for it, right? So
man,
she didn't fall for that.
Hopefully it works for others, huh? So yeah.
Okay. So reducing false positives, and I noticed that Microsoft is making a huge effort in the SOC perspective to reduce fatigue, create more effectiveness, and reduce that swivel. Like, I got to go ask somebody else. I got to go do this. I got to do this. So that's good to know.
Yeah. So I definitely want to highlight on that is that the biggest scope of UBA here is to eliminate the alert fatigue, reduce false positives. As I mentioned before, it takes from hours to days for a SOC analyst to actually close an incident and to understand whether or not it's a false positive or true positive. And actually, more than often, SOC analysts are spending a lot on time of investigating false positives than rather, investigating real attacks or real signs of intrusion, right? So UBA comes into play, and it does provide the customer a better understanding when it comes to their entities. But what is UBA in Azure Sentinel? Essentially, what we're doing is that we are conducting machine learning to better understand the behavior of the different users and entities across an environment. And by entities here, I mean a host, an application, network traffic, etc. So across those different entities, we are looking for that behavioral map. We are looking for deviations. We are conducting peer group horizons. And this is what allows us to understand whenever a activity is anomalous or it deviates from the standard baseline of that user, right? So this is critical, especially now with COVID and many different enterprises that I must say, however, digital transformation, and still is probably the biggest buzzword or phrase across any conference, digital, COVID forced enterprises to adopt and embrace digital transformation, right? We know that it was going to take 3 to 5 years, or if not more, for customers to really adopt the remote workforce or adopting the cloud. But COVID went ahead and just
COVID became a lot of entities, organizations, chief technology officers. Yes. I drive your innovation now.
Yeah,
I'm about to tell you what is about to happen right now, right?
Got it.
And I fancied myself. I said, man, if I had to go to a product team, I want to be on this product team because I got some cool names for it. Because this type of behavior, if you had to relate it to a person, it's become a detective. I would call it Project Columbo, Project Monk, Project Sherlock, right? Yeah. Project Batman, right? Yeah. This is the world's greatest detective type of stuff to stitch together something that seems totally non-related and come back and say, this is how, this is why this is happening. Yeah, very cool. Let me give you another thing about why this is powerful, and I get the floor back to you.
Yeah.
Make no doubt that I am a security realist. If you believe that negative security actors and ATPs are not have Azure subscriptions, GCP subscriptions, and AWS, they're buying the same things that we are using.
Yep.
They're training just like we are and beating up on it. Yep. Except for being the good guys, they're being the bad guys, right? Yep. So you need something that is autonomous to whomever has the skill set to say, I don't care how good it is. If I see it, I'm telling on you. And that's what this does.
You got it. And it's actually very, very inexpensive to create a lab and put MBE and, defender identity and just try to see what are the different ways that they can go around it, right? Get that back door in. Maybe it gives you a false positive, but they'll find different ways to really get into your environment. And the way they do that is by getting a lab, testing it out the same way, and the amount of hours that we're putting in, they're also putting in. So right now it's actually a very big battle between us and bad actors. Yep. Right. So with that being said, Ed mentioned a great point in that is that UEBA will allow you to really understand whenever there's a sign of intrusion or any suspicious activity across an environment. And I just want to quickly draw here is that, you know, we have users. Let me go back here. Sorry. We have users. We have different entities, but per these users, UEBA allows you to understand which devices they logged on to, from what application, from which location, and whether or not, you know, that is a common or a normal behavior across their peers, which can allow you to understand more around the risk or the, you know, more context for the SOC analyst to really make an informed decision. It allows you to understand the different resources or the user access that they have, and also the files that they commonly go and target. Also, it allows you to understand the hours that they work, right? If you see that, you know, this user only works from 9 to 5, they have a set time that they work, and they're logging in from China every single day for a week at midnight, that should raise a flag, right? So that type of information can easily help a SOC stay on top of, you know, signs of intrusion and also other sophisticated threats as well. So what are the use cases? The main use cases for Azure Sentinel's UEBA is the abuse of privileged identities, compromised user and identity, insider threat, which is super big. And actually, we have many different customers that have brought up that insider threat and data exfiltration now with COVID is at an all-time high. Right? People are selling customer sensitive data. And for that reason, they need a solution that they can also use and correlate with other additional context to be able to stay appraised and also have that centralized visibility. And that is exactly what UEBA does. Yep, go ahead.
I had a customer, I can't say the name.
Yeah.
The insider threat was falsely put upon this entity because their child's laptop crashed and they had to get the lesson done, and they let the child use it. The child browsed, got something, clicked on it.
Yeah.
And it was off to the races 30 days later. And that this customer's employee got called to the office. And it was such a non-nefarious thing. That person did not remember that they let their child use a computer that day while they took it to Geek Squad to get theirs fixed.
Wow.
And next thing you know, that person was being say, what happened? But it was a month later that the child was just surfing, clicked on something. And next thing you know, that device was compromised. It was a perfect storm because that user was at a company that did not use MFA.
Wow. Right.
And oh man, I listened to it and I'm like, oh, this is one of these stories that has to be made up. But this type of thing is what caught it. Yeah. It was that person was falsely accused and it was vindicated, but working from home, this is what you get.
It's a lot more risk now, right? The digital state is getting larger and larger and larger, and it's, you know, every day it's expanding, and unless you have the proper tools, it's going to be, you know, quite a challenge. Yeah. So what's the story here, right? So our approach is to keep it simple. Many different enterprises, they have other UEBA solutions that it may be quite complex to really onboard to UEBA. Now, our approach, as I mentioned, is to really keep it simple and allow the customer to easily onboard with a few clicks in Azure Sentinel. And I must mention that part of Azure Sentinel, everything we do, or at least the majority of things we do, is just a few clicks, or we try to make it a few clicks. So number one here, the first pillar is to detect anomalies based on entity behavior profiling, creating that standard baseline when it comes to the entity, and from there, providing anomalies or deviations of that profile. The next one here is that all the context, all the information, all that data that we're conducting machine learning on, we are then providing it and we are making it accessible and available throughout the entire Azure Sentinel experience. So we have, for example, the investigation graph. Now customers will have the ability to understand contextual and also behavioral information when it comes to a user, a host, resources, files, etc. This will help the customer stay on top and, again, reduce the alert fatigue and reduce the time that it takes to make that informed decision. Entity pages, which I know that Ed, you love this feature, and that is that entity pages allows another entry point for a SOC analyst to have a clear timeline when it comes to all the alerts and all these suspicious activities that have happened when it comes to that user or that entity. That helps the SOC analyst easily understand how risky or what is the risk that that individual or that entity is posing to the organization. And from there, we can always escalate and run different playbooks that can isolate the user, isolate the VM, etc. So this allows the SOC analyst to have one single place where we are basically stitching together different pieces of information to give them a clearer picture when it comes to that entity. And then lastly here, the biggest value is that it is very simple and quick to onboard to Azure Sentinel.
And I'll tell you why the last one is probably the most important.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of customers saying we're going to run both SIEMs side by side. We're still in contract with another one, but we want Sentinel to be here. So when we make that transition over, we have enough telemetry and history, right, to be able to do it. So yeah, absolutely. Easy to do, get it up and running, close to your cloud assets, providing some of this stuff without having to buy a whole bunch of add-ins. And you're right, short of retention costs.
You got it. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and share my other screen because I do want to go through a quick exercise. Do we have time?
Yep.
All right, awesome, perfect, great. Let's see here. One second. Yeah, the exercise that I really want to go through is how do we actually turn or transform that data into meaningful insights? And that is another big, another big feature or benefit of using Azure Sentinel. So let me go ahead and share that out. Let me know when you're able to see it, and I'll go ahead and get started.
We're good.
Awesome, perfect, excellent. So normally, if you're a SOC analyst, if you're part of a SOC, you know that you will get raw data, right? That raw data is going to give you some sort of information, but it's not going to give you the full context that you need to really understand what's going on. So the first thing here is that it is going to give you a timestamp. It's going to give you maybe a event ID when it comes to, account failed logon. It's going to give you information when it comes to the different entities that are part of that event or that activity, but it's just that, right? If you were to provide this to me, I wouldn't know what to do with it unless I have additional context. And that is where Azure Sentinel EUBA really comes to play. So the context here is the contextual information. Here we have user insights. So here we are able to understand that this is Jeff Leatherman. He is a IT help desk technician. His blast radius is high. The blast radius is what is the risk that we face if this entity were to be compromised? Meaning that if Jeff were to be compromised, of course, he is a help desk technician. This poses a big risk when it comes to the organization. Next, we take into account whether or not that is a part of a dormant account. And then we get some information when it comes to the device as well. So we get the IP address, whether or not it is a high value asset, who the owner is, and also whether or not that device is managed or unmanaged. That is critical. We also obtain the geolocation. So the geolocation is Shanghai, China, and based off additional information or additional context and feeds, we are able to understand that it is part of a botnet network, right? So just by this stage, this should go ahead and raise a red flag, right? That should raise a red flag, and we must escalate this activity based on the contextual information that we have. But wait, it doesn't stop there. Now we get the behavior analytics. Now we understand that it is the first time that Jeff accesses that server, that none of Jeff peers have accessed that server, and that's where we conduct the peer comparison. We also understand that the finance server is only accessed by 4 users across the organization, letting us know that the finance server is, of course, a high value asset, or it is one of the assets that, will pose the biggest risk if that asset were to be compromised. We also understand that it is the first time that Jeff connected from China and that no other user within the organization has ever connected from China, right? So that is the icing on the cake here, and that is the behavior analytics. And that's how we are able to help the SecOps analysts get better by understanding what is really happening. Now, as you can see, we've deciphered this simple. Let me go back. We've deciphered this simple raw data, and we are making it more meaningful by having the Azure Sentinel EUBA turned on.
So I really like this slide, because one of the things is that I always hear about people saying, hey, I want to send my raw data out to wherever. I send my raw data out to wherever. I'm like, well, why do you want to do that? Because you're losing too much contextual information by sending that data out. And so I think that that's very, very important. And then how you slide over to behavior analytics, putting all that together, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last pillar here is that we get the anomalies and we get the insights, and that is that Jeff is an IT help desk technician, recently dormant, high blast radius, meaning high risk to the organization, and has access a unusual high value asset from a unusual geolocation, part of a botnet threat intel network. And then lastly, that is where we stitch the MITRE attack tactics.
And you're going to be sending me these slides, because I really like this.
Yeah, we'll do. Definitely will. Yeah. So the MITRE attack tactics is so cool. It's a framework that really allows you to understand the coverage that an enterprise has across the environment. And the tactics really allow you to understand what are the different tactics that are currently prevalent across the environment. And we do add that as well as part of EUBA.
So how deep is it getting into the, I'll let you finish the last question.
Okay, good.
I want to make sure we have time.
No worries, you're good.
How deep are they going into understanding the user behavior? So what I mean by that is, if this person never drops out to a command prompt because they have no reason to, I'd actually want to know the fact that this user has dropped out to a command prompt and they've never, ever done that before. So do they have any sort of, those sort of actions that users are doing on endpoints that they don't normally do?
Yes, they do. And it's actually within the KQL. So let me go ahead and show you this architecture overview. One second. My adapter's acting up here. 1 second. There we go.
And then while you're doing this, while you're working on the adapter, how much of this is driven by the detection rules, and how much do you see people spending extra time in the detection rules, adding fields, and also building out the entities as part of the detection rule, so this information could be more useful across other alerts that have taken place?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And just to add on here, at the moment, a lot of customers, as I said, they are focusing on the reactive efforts. However, with UEBA, because we are making it accessible, so many different features in Azure Sentinel, including analytics and also hunting, that eliminates, the task to create some analytics that cover some of the use cases. So, like, for example, we have hunting queries that cover anomalous resource access. We have,
So my thing is that, when people are creating detection rules, I see them not taking the time to fill out the entities. That's going to make life easier for the analyst, but also that's being fed into here. So by not taking a little bit of effort in the detection rules, that's hurting you more in the long run. Would you agree with that?
100%. And I always say, the more entities you add, the richer the investigation experience. Right?
Okay, so can you tell people what that is, and when you're creating the detection rule, can you explain entities so people are new to it?
Yeah, definitely. So whenever you're creating a analytic rule in Azure Sentinel within the analytic rule wizard, you will have the option to input your KQL logic and, of course, the different entities that are part of that KQL logic, right? So let's say, for example, it's anomalous password reset, right? And we want to understand the user, the level of resource access of that user. We are able to input that as additional entities on top of that KQL logic. Now, once we get a hit or that analytic fires, that is going to add information when it comes to those different entities that you specified in the analytical wizard.
So the alert itself will actually store those specific fields or the IP addresses, the accounts.
You got it.
So that additional data that's stored there is then actually sucked in for this engine here to be used across the board.
You got it. So oftentimes I hear customers say, the KQL query is not giving me enough information. Like, where do I get this information? By adding the entities, you'll be able to mitigate that challenge.
Yeah. Okay. And if you take an analytic rule and modify it for yourself, I think there are 4 entities: IP, host, URL, and hash.
File.
That is it.
Yep.
And so you can put those things in there. And I think not understanding that those small tidbits. Now, what would be great if you could take watch lists and have the watch list populate those entities when you create it, right? By having a column and a table field that says, in this column, this is host, IP address, URL, and whatever else. So, and that will make watch lists.
I mean, there is a use for watch list there if you need to translate something that's not normally available with inside your logs there. I mean, we definitely run into to situations like that, so it can be utilized to populate entities. So I'm just saying that, so having the watch list capability or accessing external data, in KQL, you can definitely utilize that. Okay,
yeah,
what we got here,
which it is coming, right? And we do have that use case documented. At the moment, the only way is to actually just add the watch list into the watches and then, do a correlation in KQL. But, I feel like, based off the feedback that we get from customers, just even our internal field, we need more out of the box native features. So,
well, Frank doesn't need it. He's a KQL god.
No, I only know what I need to know. I'm just saying that you can go get it from an external data call situation.
Yeah, Frank once bragged to me he can write KQL in Python.
Write KQL in Python. Well, I mean, you do have notebooks, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I got to get deeper in notebooks. Maybe we get. So I don't know, Christopher, we got 3 of your peers coming on next. We got Matthew Lowe coming on.
Yep, Matt.
We have Nanad Noshi coming on. And we also have Chris, I don't want to say his last name, Beam, right?
Yeah,
like you said,
Bam.
Beam. He's coming. Yeah. So that's going to be the guests that are going to follow up you. So you set the bar now. They got to come in strong.
All right, so let's take a look at the engine here on this slide.
You got it. Yeah. So this is just a quick architecture overview when it comes to EUBA and how do we actually connect these data sources and let the engine start doing its work, right? So just a quick visual here. We get the raw data ingestion. That data is stored in Log Analytics. Log Analytics is the, you can call it the log platform that sits under Azure Sentinel, and then Azure Sentinel provides you the visuals. You can consider it that way. Once we bring that data from either on-premise or if not other cloud applications into Azure Sentinel, we turn on the EUBA engine. So if EUBA is turned on, it will go ahead and start analyzing that data and creating that behavioral profile automatically, right? Now, just quick FYI, as I mentioned, there's no cost to EUBA aside from the data retention, right? So we got to pay for the data retention, but to analyze the data, as of right now, it is completely free, right? Now, to turn on EUBA, you have to be a security contributor or if not a global admin to be able to turn on EUBA, right? Once we get that data into Azure Sentinel and we get the EUBA agent turned on, we are using Azure AD as the source of trust to be able to obtain the users and groups and additional information to be able to create that standard profile. Once we do that, it goes into the engine. That engine goes ahead and provides us different tables. We have the anomalies tables that provides us deviations. We have the identity info table, which I'm going to go into a bit, and that basically just stores a snapshot of the user profiles within the organization. The behavior analytics provides us, the deviations when it comes to the profile, and we also have the user peer groups where we do the peer comparison across the environment as well. We do have the Azure RBAC analysis that is coming to UEBA. And this is going to allow additional context when it comes to permissions of that user of all those different entities across the environment as well. So quickly, identity info table, snapshots of user profiles. This will provide user metadata from Azure AD. For example, the department, the manager, the title. It's going to help you get that contextual information as part of the investigation profile. All right. Quick snapshot of what it looks like. Identity info, take one. And here we are able to see Carol Cole, who's my manager, and we are able to understand more information when it comes to her identity and additional context like her surname, department, her title, etc. Behavior analytics stores the enriched data. So the whole point of Azure Sentinel is to provide, Sentinel EUBA is to provide enrichment and to provide additional context. The behavior analytics stores the enriched data, which is the building block for the anomalies, right? So this will allow us to get information such as the username, the UPN, event source, source IP address, the destination IP address, activity insights, and also a investigation priority score. That's pretty cool because it helps you prioritize the different entities that you investigate across an environment as well. Okay, so this just shows you here how we're able to take all this schema and we're able to put it into play. And down at the bottom here, you see a quick query that actually satisfies a pretty cool use case. And that is show me all the update key vault activities done by a user with a high blast radius, meaning poses a big risk to the organization, if the activity is performed for the first time by the user or in that tenant, or if the activity originated in a never seen before country. That's pretty cool how we're able to go into the behavior analytics table and we're able to specify these different operators that allow us to, get to that use case. And again, that's a custom analytic, but going forward with UBA, we will be providing more built-in content that will satisfy other different use cases.
This is super useful. I'm already going to take this and modify it because I had a customer ask me that they need this type of insight for Azure Kubernetes.
Yeah.
And they want to understand when someone was making changes and doing stuff to a Kubernetes container. Mm-hmm.
Remember to put in the community repository there once you write it.
Yeah, you got it. Let's see here. Yep. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and share screens here. I'm going to share another screen, and that is of my Azure portal. So let me go ahead and do that. 1 second. Let me know when you're able to see it.
Yep,
we can.
Got it.
Yep. So let me go ahead and shift over to 1 second. Right here. We go to CyberSoc. Awesome. So once we get into CyberSoc, we're going to go into workbooks, and I'm just going to show you one of the entry points that we have to really understand what's going on when it comes to UBA and also how to make the most of Azure Sentinel's UBA feature. So we have this workbook. For those that do not know what a workbook is basically a visualization source that allows you to really understand and decipher the story that the data is trying to tell you. So this is the UBA workbook. It allows us to understand any compromise or insider threats within the organization and allows us to gain insights when it comes to any anomalous user behavior from different baselines. So let's go ahead and view and take a look at what this workbook provides us. Okay. So once this loads here up at the top, we are able to understand information when it comes to all the open incidents, the alert count, the anomalies count. And to be honest, the anomalies count is what we want to take a deeper look at, because that is going to provide us deviations from the standard profile, and that is going to be the enriched data that we're able to analyze. So if we scroll down here, this is a pretty cool workbook because it is just like is basically a click-through investigation process. If I click here on Jeff L, I'm able to see the incident count, the alert count, and additional information when it comes to the user. Now, I want to choose a user here for demo purposes that has some anomalies. So here we see that Ken has 12 incidents 12 alert counts and 12 anomalies that are currently present. If I scroll down, I'm able to understand all the incidents that pertain to this entity. If I click on the incident URL, this allows me to pivot into the incident URL where I am able to understand more details when it comes to the incident. If I scroll down, I am able to understand the anomalies. So for example, here we have 10 anomalies that are all anomalous account creation. When I click on that, I am able to see that this pertains to the persistence MITRE attack tactic. So this allows the SOC analyst to understand exactly what type of activity or technique is being done at this given moment. If I scroll all the way to the right, I'm able to understand additional context, for example, the UPN, user insights, activity type, action type, target user, and evidence is really where it's at, right? So as part of evidence, I'm able to understand whether or not when it was the last time the user performed that action, whether it is the first time the user performed that action, or whether or not this is a uncommon activity or action amongst that entity's peers, right? So here we see that this is true, it's uncommon, which adds additional enrichment or additional context when it comes to our use case here. Now, I can easily click on Chemkin, and this will go ahead and pivot me into the entity pages for, it didn't do that then, but it should pivot you into the entity pages, which I'm gonna demo now. And the entity pages is actually a really cool feature and probably the best page that I think is in Azure Sentinel in my personal opinion. So as part of entity behaviors, this is the additional entry point that we're providing customers to have. As you can see here, if a SOC analyst wants to quickly know the alerts or activities that are suspicious that pertain to a certain account or host, they're able to go into entity behavior. This is where we are stitching together many different data or critical information that can help reduce the time to respond and also ignite a decision upon the SOC analyst. So here we have the accounts by number of alerts. This provides you a quick snapshot and also the host by number of alerts. If I click here on Jeff L, this will provide me a account page or user page. And we have 3 different areas. If you're reading from left to right, here we have information when it comes to the user, the role, identity, the UPN, who the manager is, and also the city or the location of that individual. So for example, if we see that Jeff Leatherman is logging in from Shanghai, China, but he is based out of Tulsa in the United States, and this is a uncommon location and no one around his peers has ever logged in, that raises a red flag, right? We also see here that we have an entity link. This allows the SOC team to easily share the user page or the account page to others in case we have to escalate this as well. Here in the middle, this is a really important part of this page, and that is the event and alerts over time. And this allows us to, filter out when it comes to the time range. So we can say, let's go ahead and retrieve all the events and alerts for the last 30 days, and it will go ahead and reflect when it comes to that time range that was specified. Here we can understand that all the information here, the 54, the 1600 are alerts. Sorry, let's go back. The 54 are based off alerts, and we can dive in deeper and we can scroll down here to better understand exactly what's going on here. So here we see some ransomware activity, mass share, infected device logon, some privileged account logon. So the SOC analyst can easily go ahead and click on one of those different incidents, and that will take them into the KQL query where they're able to correlate, create bookmarks, and also correlate this information with additional context based off that user. If we go back now, and I'll probably have to click again on Jeff L. The right-hand side provides us the insights. So the insights is additional information or additional context. And here we have the user peers based on security groups, actions that are made when it comes to the account, whether or not the event logs have been cleared, which is a very obvious tactic or technique that bad actors use in order to obfuscate themselves. Any group additions, for example, any lateral movement, whether or not they add themselves to a local admin group or to a group that has higher privileges. We also see here resource access, and we are also supporting the EUBA insights, right? And also any threat indicators that are related to the user. This is pretty cool. And lastly, I want to talk about the investigate button. The investigate button allows us to have that interactive experience with the investigation graph. And as you can see here, Jeff Hell has a copious amount of alerts, based on their profile. We do have the ability to ask additional questions that can help us make that informed decision. So for example, here, we can click on user account with successful logons. And as you can see here, victim PC is that account. And we can go from Jeff L to victim PC and ask additional questions as well. And as you can see, it only took one simple click to get additional context. And from there, we can easily go ahead and click on an incident, view a playbook, and fire a playbook. Now, that playbook can go and perform various different actions. It can be for enrichment, it could be for incident management, and it can also be for remediation as well. So the entity pages for Azure Sentinel is a really good entry point to investigate and to better understand the risk that a customer poses across the environment.
Excellent. And it could be a deal closer. I saved this for last because this is a pull away from, the built-in indexes and dashboards that you got to maintain from a lot of other places. Let me tell you the cool part. If you guys saw me looking away, I was following you in my own subscription.
Yeah.
That's how easy it is to follow what you were doing in my own lab and say, I don't have the same data, but I was able to do the same thing. So when someone says, hey man, I'm trying to do this, well, hold on, you don't have access, you don't so-and-so. You got an Azure login, you got at least reader, you can follow along what this person is doing, right? And so this is going to help make the SOC analysts, especially for those who are on call, right? I haven't been on call in a decade.
Got it.
This makes it so that, I'll take that SOC job now.
Yeah.
Right? Because otherwise I'm not taking it.
Yeah.
I like my kids. I like my life. I like not having Louis Vuitton bags up under my eyes.
Yeah.
There you go.
It really,
this is excellent.
Yeah, it really simplifies the life of any SOC analyst, to be honest. And those for like my threat hunters, my tier 3 analysts, as I said before, EUBA is presented and is available across many different features across Azure Sentinel. And one here is hunting, right? So hunting, there's out-of-the-box hunting queries that I recommend every customer to use, every enterprise out there to use, because it really provides you a quick way to understand whether or not something fell through the cracks, right?
Let me ask you.
Yep.
Why wouldn't these just be detection rules or analytical rules? Why wouldn't this just be detections instead of hunting queries?
Yeah, really good question. Yeah, so the reason why these are hunting rules is because you can easily elevate this. Like you can have this as a test. For example, I can bookmark this, and whether or not I have results. So, for example, here the anomalous sign-in activity, I have 135 results. I can basically test out these hunting queries or these soon-to-be detection rules within the hunting queries to see whether or not these are true positives, right? If you're getting a lot of false positives out of the box hunting queries, you may not want to elevate that into a analytic, which will then elevate into an incident in Azure Sentinel. So this allows you to test it out, see whether or not you are getting a lot of hits. And if you are, you can elevate that into a analytic role.
And that's a good question. That's a good question, Frank.
Yeah.
Let me give you my answer. I had that question today. I said, what if you have an alert that has a threshold of 4, and a threshold of 5, and it never hits 5? So whatever's going on, you're never firing that alert because it's hitting 4, hitting 4, hitting 4. But if I hunt, I can hunt and get a hit, even though I never met the threshold of 5 to say, if I get 5 of these hits, then elevate this into an alert, into an incident. So I like the hunting because it allows me to search below the threshold of the analytic.
Yep.
Okay. So
And that's the answer I gave.
Let me ask you, why do you think live stream are so important that you're saying that they're not using it? I mean, can I just come in here and do my queries? I mean, why are live streams so important?
Yeah, live stream is very important, especially if you want to stay appraised, right? If you want to stay up to date or aware of a certain use case, like for example, I would easily turn this into either a detection rule or I would turn this into a live stream. Why? Because whenever you add a hunting query into live stream for that user session, and let's go ahead and tab into live stream.
Okay, and define what a live stream is for people.
Yep. So live stream is basically an interactive user session that you will enable a hunting query to run. And again, you can play it and you can pause it, right? So whenever it's in play, it is basically looking to see if we have any hits when it comes to that use case. If we get any hits, you will see a notification within your Azure portal, platform. And that will allow you to understand that you've got any hits, right? So
how often does it check?
Let's see, hold on. I mean, because this is continuous, right? It's just continuous. Whether, once you pause it, it's going to go ahead and just stop looking for that data, right? So it's a continuous.
Can you attach a playbook so you can drop a note into a Teams channel?
Yep. Okay. So via Logic App, you do have the ability to actually do that. I haven't seen a lot of customers do that, to be honest. I think that
I'm just saying that I don't want to miss the notification with inside my Azure portal.
Yeah, because it's just going to pop up here, right? It's going to pop up on this right-hand side.
But I don't want to miss that, so I want to have a better way of knowing. So I'd rather have it drop into as a Teams message into a channel.
Yeah, or email. Yep, you got it. Yep. Yeah, but live stream is definitely one feature that a lot of customers, I don't think they've really experienced the power of it. However, I would say I've worked with a client and I kid you not, they turned on a live stream and in less than 5 minutes, they had more than 500 hits. And that was actually the way that they were able to understand that they were actually compromised and that something was going on, across the environment. So if you want to stay appraised of a certain use case that's, a concern to the entire SOC team, you can easily add your own custom hunting query, put it into a live stream, or if not, just click on here and click on new live stream. And from there, you can specify a name and then specify the KQL logic, and you're pretty much good to go.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And since we're on this page, people looking at it, what are bookmarks?
Oh, wow. Yeah, bookmarks is really good. And actually, I want to talk about a quick little add-on that we added into this entire pane just to empower or, tell customers to really take, benefit of this hunting pane. And that is let me go back a second. Yeah. That is the guides and feedback, right? So oftentimes customers are confused when it comes to live stream, when it comes to the out-of-the-box hunting queries, when it comes to bookmarks. This is a pretty cool feature that we added, and it is the guides and feedback. The guides and feedback gives you a quick definition of what the use case is and how does it work and what are the use cases that it is trying to satisfy or mitigate. And also the what's new is on whether or not we added a new addition to this pane or a new enhancement that will always show up under there. And then useful links when it comes to our public documentation, our blogs that our internal field has written on why you should use live stream and also how to create a live stream as well. Down at the bottom is the share with us when it comes to different ideas or use cases that you currently, you haven't been able to satisfy or mitigate, but you would like to see a certain improvement or feature added. Our team is actually actively looking at this mailbox. So please feel free to go ahead and utilize that box as well. Now, bookmarks is pretty cool because bookmarks is a way that you can stay on top of certain context or even evidence, right? So throughout the investigation experience, you will come across certain activity that you would want to bookmark or you would want to document on, in some way. So I think that documentation is actually one of the critical pieces that not many SOCs do, that can help them really investigate and have proper documentation across the entire life cycle of an incident. So bookmarks allows you to do just that. So you can easily go into logs, and I just want to show different ways that you can create a bookmark. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and just run this last query here for the example. Let's not try that. Let's just run security alert. Okay. So once we get the results here, we are able to dive deeper, and I can better understand exactly what is this alert. Just imagine that this is some sort of evidence or context that I want to document as part of the life cycle of the incident. I can click and select this activity here, and then I can click on add bookmark. When I click on add bookmark, this allows me to save and annotate and share results from my investigation, to my team, or if not, add that as an incident. So right here, I can specify a name. I can add entities. Again, the more entities you add into Azure Sentinel, the richer the investigation experience. Right. So here I can add the host, the IP, the URL, the timestamp, and I can also put a tag saying very suspicious. All right, I can add that tag into there. And then I can just put some notes into that. Once I finish creating that tag, we actually have different ways to access that bookmark. One of the ways is by going into hunting bookmark. We have a dedicated table for all the bookmarks that we have. And here we can get better understanding when it comes to that bookmark or that result that came from the investigation experience.
So it'd be interesting is taking the time generated as the UTC and using that to pivot across other data to build things out from there. That would be interesting.
Yeah. And actually, you can actually change this here within the settings page. For those customers that are confused when it comes to the a UTC timeframe popping up in your KQL, you can change that within the settings.
You can change it right there on your display too on the grid.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, right here. Yep.
Yeah. So you can do it right there on the screen in the go middle right there. Display, go down, go up. Right, the next to the bookmark. There you go.
Yep.
Right to your local time.
It's shortcuts. Hey, we're about to be up against time. This has been hugely informative. I like the interaction. I like the display and the presentation for the customers. So we'll go ahead and let you close out the next 4 minutes. Anything else you want to leave with our listeners and everybody? I think we have information about you, how our listeners and supporters can follow you on social media. Anything else you want to close with?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I would just say, take advantage of the Azure Sentinel EUBA feature. It's out of the box. It's very simple to onboard to. At the moment, we do support several different data sources, so Azure AD Sign-In, Audit, but we do have additional data that's coming down the pipeline that will include other cloud, will also include other Microsoft first-party products, and will also include additional identity providers as well. As we all know, as part of COVID and the world that we live in today, the remote workforce has posed a huge risk, especially to customers that were forced to get into that playing field. So the Azure Sentinel EUBA feature can help your SOC analysts reduce the time that it takes to respond to an incident, the time that it takes to ignite a decision, and also reduce the alert fatigue across the environment. If you have any questions, just please feel free to always reach out. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Great demo.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank you. Very good, informative. Franklin, it's up to me. I got to get down to the next thing I got to do. This is very good.
It's time for you to go to bed. What are you talking about? It's 7:30.
No, I'm an early sleeper, man. Well, you're not getting up at 4 a.m. like I'm doing.
Yeah.
I get up with the chicken. So thanks again, Cristhofer, for sharing your knowledge, your passion, and your experience with this. Like I said, I've learned so much from you by watching. And to our listeners and supporters, don't think that Sentinels is the only thing. He's also a Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Heavy. I've seen him in action. And he's a Sysmon fan too. I didn't want to say that to the end. So I want Frank going. Yeah, he's a 6-month fan too. So, hey,
Hey, you know,
you
if he
guys
puts
have a great
cloud
night.
app security last, he's my favorite
Well,
guest so
whatever.
far.
You paid. I'm going to find the evidence that you paid him Cash App, PayPal, or something else to give that answer.
Or
I got you.
Venmo, yeah.
Venmo. See, he's already you putting out there. Hey, sir, thanks so much for taking time out your evening, man. We
Thank you
really
all. Appreciate
appreciate this. It'll be posted up and everything, and please follow us, recommend us. We
Definitely.
will just enlighten people the way you've enlightened us, right? I
Yep.
work in the product, but even today, I followed some of the things you were doing in my lab. Like, oh, I didn't know you could do it that way, right? So I
Yeah.
did that. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Have a good night.
Good night,
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Till
Take
next
care.
week.
Thanks.
Till next week.